Servus, Freunde. My name is...
Here's your diamond, Jimmy Raj. Can I please get some food now?
Food! Look at you. You're far too chubby anyway. Go back to work and find me some more diamonds.
You know what, Jimmy Raj? You're a dick. A dick. A dick, dick, dick.
Tick, 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 tick.
Servus, Freunde. My name is Jimmy Cage.
And I'm Dennis, the Bodymeister.
And because this year marks the centenary of legendary Bengali filmmaker Satyajit Ray, we are reviewing at least one of his many wonderful movies each month.
A few weeks ago, we reviewed The Adventures of Goopy and Bhaga, Ray's 1969 fantasy adventure comedy musical about two happy-go-lucky musicians who use their newly gained powers to do good. Today we're talking about the sequel, Hirok Raja Deshe, aka The Kingdom of Diamonds, where Goopy and Bhaga, the two musicians that we took in our heart immediately, return for another adventure.
The Kingdom of Diamonds was released in 1980, so 11 years have passed since Goopy and Bhaga prevented the war between the Kingdom of Shundi and Hala. And that's pretty much where we start in this movie. But not without Goopy and Bhaga telling us all about them and their adventure in the introductory song first.
Mora Dujanai Rajar Jamai, which means something like "We too are the king's sons-in-law," is a wonderful song that puts you right back into the Goopy and Bhaga mood. They tell you everything you need to know to understand what's going on. And after that, we see them both chilling out in their room, thinking about life and how time flew by, and about what they should do now.
It's a nice little meditation about the passing of time and that you shouldn't waste your life away, and luckily, their and therefore also our next adventure is about to begin. Unfortunately though, the version we watched only had subtitles for some of the songs. And Ar Bilambo Noi, the song in which they realized that they should take action again, wasn't one of them. But I think we still got the gist of it.
Yeah, and what their next adventure might entail is revealed in the next scene. An almost 20-minute long discussion/rant by the king of Hirok, who is totally happy when every minister just says yes to everything he says or proposes.
The king of Hirok, played by the great Utpal Dutt, obviously has some sinister plans. He not only repels every single citizen that comes to him with a request, he also drills some kind of mantra in each and every one of them. And there's also talk of brainwashing.
This 20-minute long scene is quite entertaining. It's self-referential in a way, and of course how every minister just agrees with everything the king says, and at multiple times in this overly satirical way, is really funny.
The real story kicks in after that, with the appearance of the teacher Udayan Pandit, played by Soumitra Chatterjee. After the king declared that studying and learning is bad and that knowledge is a waste, we see the king's henchmen breaking up Udayan's class and telling all the children to go home. And with that scene and the character of Udayan, this movie becomes a lot more serious.
Yes, the Kingdom of Hirok, the place which is known for its huge diamond mines, is of course also the place that attracts our heroes the most, and the place where they end up after reveling in the beauty of nature with the song Ahaki Anando.
Another great song and one of the highlights for me, though also one we didn't have subtitles for.
Yeah, but I really liked all the songs. Anup Ghoshal, the playback singer, has an outstanding voice.
I agree. One thing that clearly distinguishes The Kingdom of Diamonds from The Adventures of Goopy and Bhaga is its more serious nature. The first movie was much more playful and also a bit weirder. The second movie has a more linear structure, although the interactions between the characters are more elaborate.
Yeah, the biggest difference visually is of course that The Kingdom of Diamonds was shot in color, something that Rai wanted to do in the first movie but couldn't afford. And while the first movie is more playful and weirder, this one is much more sophisticated in terms of the dialogue and narration.
The dialogue is something that Ray himself called untranslatable. The king and his ministers talk in a very formal language, and mostly in rhymes. The ordinary people, like the miners or the peasants, talk in a more naturalistic language. It's impossible to translate something like that.
What I did understand though were the verses that the king wanted his poet to write. Verses that can easily be transplanted into the minds of the king's subjects. And those are the mantras that the people repeat time after time, and the ones that are fed to the brainwashing machine that the king owns.
In that regard, The Kingdom of Diamonds is very much a dystopian science fiction movie that bears resemblance to George Orwell's 1984 or Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451.
Oh yes, absolutely. And the sets, especially the room with the brainwashing machine and the levers that control it, have a kind of steampunk vibe to them, which I really liked.
It's a more serious, a more mature, a more complex movie. It has a clearer political dimension. How Ray is portraying this ruler as someone who needs to keep his people stupid. How he needs to feed them simple messages so that he can stay in power.
It still has the cornerstones that make it a fun adventure for children though. Goopy and Bhaga are walking through dungeons and mines, sneaking through tunnels, they're using their clothes changing skill to fool a guard.
Or how they use their singing skill to stun a tiger in order to get a key for a treasure chest, which is probably the best scene in this movie. It was also a nice little throwback to the first film in which our two heroes also encounter a wild tiger. All of that stuff is pretty great. But it still can be a very slow movie.
It can be a drag at times. I won't call it boring, but there are parts in this movie where we just don't get any new information, where almost nothing is progressing. And the fact that we have a lot of characters that are of interest, that are an integral part of a very dense story, causes focal shifts that stand in the way of an organic narrative. It's 20 minutes with the king, then 15 minutes with Gupi and Baga, then 10 minutes with Udayan. There are large parts in this movie where you simply have no idea what Gupi and Baga are doing or where they even are until they resurface.
I agree. I also had a feeling that the character of Baga took kind of a backseat in this one. He's of course the one who gets the key for the treasure chest, but other than that, I don't know. He doesn't play his drums as much and he sings very little. I think only in the first and the last song.
Maybe Ravi Ghosh didn't feel like doing this movie?
I really don't think so. Apparently, the thought that went through his mind while bending over the tigress to get the key was, if I die, it will be for Satyajit Ray film. So, sounds like dedication to me.
It really does. Anyhow, The Kingdom of Diamonds is a good movie. It has a lot going for it. I mean, the story is kind of timeless. The settings, the music, the songs. Nohi Jantra, fantastic. And I love the performances by Utpal Dutt and Soumitra Chatterjee. They really are an asset. Although Soumitra tends to be too good for this movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, his craftsmanship, or rather his expertise in dramatic acting, is almost too much for this story. But we are probably a bit picky here.
Probably.
Oh, and again, no female characters in this movie, and I really mean not a single one. Gopi and Baga are not even talking about their wives, not even thinking about them, nothing.
I know, maybe that changed in Gupi Baga Fire Elo? Wanna bet?
Yeah. What would we say in German about The Kingdom of Diamonds?
The Kingdom of Diamonds ist nicht so gut wie sein Vorgänger, aber die ausgeklügelten Dialoge, die tollen Sets und Schauspieler und die grandiosen Songs machen aus diesem Film dennoch einen würdigen Nachfolger.
I give The Kingdom of Diamonds 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.3, but I don't do that.
For me, it's also 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.1, but I don't do that either. Did you know that Royal Bengal tigers are great swimmers? They have developed this skill because of their habitat. The mangroves have made them prone to swimming. They can hunt in the water too.
Wow, did not know that. So, what are your thoughts about The Kingdom of Diamonds? Leave a comment. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at The Jimmy Cage.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at The Bodymeister.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all we have to tell.